He always thought the weirdest thing he'd ever pull out of a dumpster would be a half-eaten burrito, maybe the occasional broken blender. That was until he saw something moving, glowing faintly, like a neon nightlight with legs. He leaned over, muttering about raccoons, only to find a small figure staring back at him with eyes too big for her face. She blinked once and said in a voice that was both innocent and disturbingly direct, "I need a host." Now, a normal man would call the police, or animal control, or maybe an ex-girlfriend just to say, "Hey, you wouldn't believe what I found." But this guy? He was lonely, hungry, and just desperate enough for validation that when a strange, tiny, clearly not of this earth girl looked at him like he was important, he felt chosen. He muttered something about not being great with kids but decent with microwaves, then held out a hand. She grabbed it with surprising strength and repeated, "You smell fertile." He laughed nervously, like she had said something out of a badly translated cereal commercial. "You must mean, I smell like food. Pizza. Yeah, let's get you some." And so, without further questions, he brought her upstairs, tucked her into his worn-out recliner, and introduced her to the proud culinary legacy of human civilization, a box of frozen chicken nuggets. She poked them suspiciously, sniffed, and then devoured the entire plate faster than a college student on finals week. In between bites, she asked questions that carried a weight her small frame shouldn't have been able to carry. "Do you keep me warm at night? Do you exchange fluids often? What's your host capacity?" He nearly choked on his soda, waving his hands like she had just asked him to film an adult movie. Whoa, kiddo, easy there. Fluids? Host capacity? You sound like my landlord. Look, you're fine here. We've got blankets, Netflix, and Wi-Fi. That's all the warmth you need. She tilted her head, repeating the word slowly, W-I-F, as though it was sacred. He explained it the way any modern man does, like his trying to make a fish understand air. It's invisible food for the brain. You'll love it. But don't eat all the bandwidth, okay? He wasn't good with people, let alone aliens. Most of his adult life was spent failing upward, failed jobs, failed diets, failed attempts at romance. And yet, this bizarre, glowing child hung on his every word, even when he rambled about how dating apps were basically just UFO abductions with bad selfies. You swipe right, they abduct your free time, they probe your dignity, and if you're really unlucky, you wake up in another city with a bill for brunch. The alien girl blinked, utterly serious, and whispered, "Sounds terrifying. Sounds familiar." For the first time in a long time, he felt like he wasn't just talking to the walls. Sure, she didn't understand half of what he said, but she listened. She asked him to explain why humans made food out of corn but also out of sugar, syrup, oil, and plastic, all still called corn. He laughed, telling her it was a survival tactic. "We're not advanced. We're just stubborn. We see something edible and ask, how many different ways can I ruin this before I die?" Her little antenna twitched, or maybe they were just oddly placed bangs, and she scribbled notes on a scrap of cardboard. She asked about his apartment, why the walls were thin enough to hear neighbors but thick enough to block sunlight. He shrugged. "That's called affordable housing. It's a test of character. If you can survive the neighbors' arguments and the plumbing, you're basically immortal." She watched him play with his phone, fascinated by the glowing screen, then asked, "Is that your mate? You stroke it constantly." He dropped the phone so fast it bounced off the couch. "Not a mate. Definitely not. Just, look, this is called a phone. It's like a communicator. You use it to order food you can't afford, ignore people you care about, and read arguments with strangers you'll never meet. Very human." By the second day, she had learned to scroll memes, demolish snack cakes, and complain about ads like she had lived here her whole life. He caught her muttering phrases she picked up from TV commercials, limited time only, buy one get one free, and wondered if he was raising an alien or corrupting one. Yet every so often, she dropped words that unsettled him. "You are doing well as a host. Your fluids are sustaining me." He'd freeze, mouth full of noodles, and argue, "Nope, Wrong. I gave you orange soda, not fluids. Don't say that at school, people will misunderstand. She would nod obediently, then ask, School? Is that where you gather the strong for reproduction trials? He groaned, explaining detention slips and cafeteria food until she concluded, Your species tortures your young early. Efficient. He wanted to believe he was just helping some lost alien child until she curled up one night under a blanket and whispered, You're warmer than I expected. If you keep this up, I will transform. He stared at the ceiling, wondering if she meant puberty or Pokémon evolution, and prayed it was neither. Still, he couldn't help but feel proud. He wasn't a good boyfriend, not a good son, barely a decent employee, but somehow, he had kept this bizarre, demanding little alien alive. And she seemed grateful, in her strange way, clinging to his routines, parroting his sarcasm, watching late-night infomercials with awe. He had no idea what he was actually raising. No idea what transform meant. No idea that his kindness and his stupidity were steering him straight toward trouble. All he knew was that, for the first time in years, someone looked at him like he mattered. And that was enough to ignore the way she sometimes licked the TV screen when car commercials came on, whispering, Host capacity confirmed. 3 days later, he was just beginning to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. The little alien girl had settled in like a roommate that didn't pay rent but demanded snacks. She drained his fridge, learned to hog the TV, and somehow figured out how to order things online with his credit card. He came home to find 3 boxes of glow sticks, a kiddie pool, and 6 gallons of chocolate milk at his door. When he asked why, she said, For the ritual. He didn't push it. But that morning, he was halfway through instant noodles when there was a knock at the door. A knock with rhythm, like someone practiced. He shuffled over, opened it, and instantly lost the ability to breathe. Standing there were 2 women. Not women like his neighbor Karen who smoked on the balcony and complained about his recycling habits, but women that looked like a sci-fi illustrator had gone overboard at a comic convention. Tall, sharp-eyed, curves like they were engineered by focus groups, and skin that shimmered faintly with colors that shifted as they moved. One of them leaned in, eyes narrowing, and said in a voice that was sultry but businesslike, We are here for the offspring. His brain short-circuited. Offspring? He pointed behind him like a guilty child. The kid? Oh, yeah, she's in the living room, probably watching cat videos. Look, I didn't kidnap her or anything. She followed me home like a radioactive puppy. The second woman tilted her head, scanning him with an expression that made him feel like an exhibit. You are the host, she asked. He coughed into his sleeve, face heating. Host? I mean, yeah, I guess I let her crash here. Like hosting a guest, you know? Not like, host. He added the last bit too quickly, and the smirk she gave him suggested she knew exactly how it sounded. The girl poked her head out from behind the couch, yelled something in a language that sounded like static over a bad radio, and the 2 women softened instantly, relief spreading across their perfect features. Then one of them turned back to him and said, You have nourished her well. She is stable. We did not think a human male had the capacity. His ego swelled and deflated at the same time. Nourished? Stable? Capacity? It all sounded like he had been breastfeeding a child when really, he'd been microwaving nuggets and letting her sip soda. He raised his hands defensively. Whoa, I just kept her alive, okay? I'm not exactly father of the year material. She did most of the work herself. The taller one stepped inside without invitation, scanning his messy apartment with visible disgust. You provided warmth, shelter, sustenance, fluids. He nearly dropped his noodles. Stop saying fluids. You make it sound dirty. I gave her Capri Suns. That's it. No fluids. Definitely not mine. The second one chuckled, a low melodic sound that made his knees wobble. Your denial is amusing. Humans always avoid truth with humor. Effective defense mechanism. They circled the room like appraisers at a pawn shop, murmuring to each other about his fertility scent and stability indicators. He wanted to object but found himself frozen between flattery and terror. Finally, he blurted, "Look, I didn't do this for some kind of, I don't know, breeding award. I just didn't want her to starve. That's all." They exchanged a glance, the kind of glance that made him feel like they'd already decided something about him. Then one of them said, "Your improvisations are impressive. Processed meats, synthetic sugars, entertainment loops. She adapted because you gave her chaos. We did not predict this outcome." He scratched the back of his neck. "Well, yeah, that's humanity in a nutshell. Chaos. We can't plan a vacation without 3 people fighting over flight times. But hey, at least it worked, right?" The little alien girl bounded over and latched onto his leg, chirping something affectionate. The 2 women smiled faintly, then focused on him again. "She has chosen you," one of them said flatly. He gulped. "Chosen me for what? Please don't say prom." The smirk returned. "For continuity. For the next phase." His imagination sprinted into places it shouldn't. The way they kept saying phase and host and capacity sounded less like science and more like a dirty magazine subscription. He held up both hands. "Ladies, let's be clear here. I'm broke, unemployed, and my idea of a romantic dinner is splitting a coupon for takeout. I am not host material. You've got the wrong guy." The taller one stepped closer, invading his space, and sniffed him. Actually sniffed him, like he was a bottle of wine. "No. You are exactly the right male. You smell fertile, resourceful, and sufficiently desperate. These are ideal conditions." He stumbled back into the couch, muttering, "That's probably the least flattering compliment I've ever gotten, and I once got called reliable like a spare tire." The second one sat casually on his armrest, far too close, her voice a velvet tease. "Your body adapted to her needs. You did not resist. You provided fluids without complaint." He covered his face. "It was orange soda. Just orange soda. Why does everything sound filthy when you say it?" She leaned closer, whispering, "Because it is filthy." He groaned, half laughing, half panicking. This wasn't how his Saturday mornings usually went. Normally, he'd be scrolling through memes, not arguing semantics of fluids with 2 intergalactic bombshells who looked like they'd stepped off the cover of an adult sci-fi parody. He tried to redirect, waving at the girl. "Look, she's fine. Healthy. Glowing even. Job's done, right? You can take her home now." The women shook their heads in unison. "Not yet. The cycle is incomplete. She has transformed because of you. Now the responsibility continues." His heart sank. "Continues how?" The answer came in perfect harmony, like they'd rehearsed it. "You will carry the next." He coughed so hard noodles sprayed across the coffee table. "Excuse me? Carry? Next? No, no, no. You've got the wrong guy. I can barely carry groceries up the stairs. I'm not built for whatever alien daycare nightmare you're planning." But they didn't laugh. They only stared, eyes gleaming with a mix of hunger and certainty, while the little alien girl hugged his leg tighter and chirped, "Host capacity confirmed." He had dealt with salesmen before. Cable packages, gym memberships, even the guy who tried to sell him knives that could cut through steel and tomatoes alike. But nothing compared to 2 alien women pitching him on being the proud host of an interstellar brood. They sat across from him with serious faces, and every word out of their mouths sounded like either a contract or a pickup line. "You are qualified," the tall one began, like she was opening a PowerPoint presentation. "Your body has proven resilient. Your instincts are compatible. Your fluids are optimal." He nearly fell off the couch. "Stop with the fluids. For the love of humanity, stop." She ignored him, continuing smoothly, "We require your consent to carry the next cycle. In exchange, you will be rewarded with honor, status, and continued companionship." The second one leaned forward, smile too sharp to be friendly. "Few males survive the first incubation. You are rare. Special. You may even be irreplaceable." He stared at them, horrified. You're making this sound like an MLM pitch. Do I get a free blender if I bring in more hosts? Is this some pyramid scheme, except I'm the pyramid? The little alien girl chirped happily, clearly in favor of the whole thing, while he rubbed his temples and tried not to hyperventilate. Look, I'm not incubator material. I'm 35, I eat cereal for dinner, I can't keep a cactus alive. If you put eggs in me, they'll come out scrambled. But the women didn't relent. They pulled out what looked disturbingly like a contract written in glowing script across thin sheets of energy. They pointed to phrases that sounded both legal and obscene. Full nesting privileges. Sustained fluid exchange. Mutual satisfaction guaranteed. He snorted. That's not a contract, that's Tinder with extra steps. They took turns explaining the process, each word making his stomach twist. He wouldn't just carry the eggs, his body would slowly adapt, restructure, and prepare. He wouldn't be him anymore, not fully. The transformation is slow. Gentle, one said, her voice like honey poured over a knife. You will feel full. You will serve a greater purpose. He panicked, blurting out every excuse he could think of. I've got allergies. I can't even handle lactose. My landlord barely lets me keep houseplants. I'm emotionally unavailable. My chiropractor says I'm not built for heavy lifting. The second one tilted her head, amused. Your resistance is charming. Humans deny until the last moment, then they submit with eagerness. He held up a finger like he was cross-examining them. Nope. Not me. I'm stubborn. If procrastination were an Olympic sport, I'd have gold medals. You picked the wrong human. They smiled knowingly, and that terrified him more than any threat could. We admire your defiance, the tall one said. It means you will last longer. The stubborn ones always do. It was dark humor at its finest. The idea that his greatest flaw, refusing to commit to anything, ever, was exactly why they thought he was prime host material. He almost laughed, but his throat was too dry. So let me get this straight. You want me to, what, waddle around pregnant with alien eggs until I pop like a balloon? No thank you. Hard pass. Big no. The women exchanged glances, then shifted tactics. They leaned closer, voices low, words dripping with innuendo. You will not be alone. We will assist. We will prepare you. We will keep you satisfied. His brain nearly melted. That's not a comfort, that's foreplay. Are you even listening to yourselves? They nodded serenely. Yes. We listen. We understand. And we will make sure you understand too. He tried bargaining, offering ridiculous compromises. What if I babysit instead? Teach the little one more human stuff? I can show her how to file taxes, complain about customer service, yell at clouds. That's valuable, right? The smaller one tugged on his sleeve and chirped, No, Dad. You host now. He groaned, head in his hands. Great. Even the alien kid is peer pressuring me. The tall woman unfolded the glowing contract again, pointing at a section that read something like irrevocable once initiated. He muttered, Yeah, that's exactly the kind of clause that ruins a vacation timeshare too. When stalling didn't work, he tried another human specialty, deflection with bad jokes. Look, if you put eggs in me, I'm charging rent. Utilities, Wi-Fi, Netflix. You think intergalactic daycare is free? The women looked at each other, genuinely considering his words, which unsettled him even more. Then the darker truth came out. They didn't just want a host, they wanted to change him. His humanity wasn't an obstacle, it was raw material. You will not lose yourself, one said, smiling like a liar. You will become more. He pointed at them, panicked. That's exactly what people say before trying to sell you essential oils. You'll become more, just rub lavender on your credit score. But underneath his sarcasm, he felt the weight of it. They weren't joking. He was standing at the edge of a choice he didn't want, with no good options. His survival instincts screamed at him to run, but where? Call the cops and explain 2 alien women wanted to turn him into an egg incubator? Post it on Reddit? He'd just get memes and bad advice. So he did the only thing humans are truly great at, he stalled. He crossed his arms, straightened up, and said, "If you want me to sign up for this, you're gonna have to do it the human way. No contracts, no rituals, no creepy glowing pens. You'll have to convince me with negotiation." The 2 women smiled, dangerous and amused, clearly thinking he had no chance. But he knew one thing they didn't: humans may not be the strongest, or the smartest, but when it comes to talking circles around problems, nobody beats them. And if he was going to survive this without becoming the galaxy's weirdest daycare center, he'd need every ounce of stubborn, sarcastic, desperate human wit he had left. They weren't leaving. That was the first thing he realized. They had settled into his apartment like they owned the place, rearranging his furniture, muttering about nesting requirements, and pulling glowing devices out of nowhere. He watched in horror as they dimmed the lights, spread blankets across the floor, and even lit candles. Candles. He hadn't seen candles since that one awkward date night years ago, and now they were being used by aliens preparing to turn him into a brood farm. To make matters worse, they connected his Bluetooth speaker and, through some terrifying act of telepathy, queued up his old date playlist. Marvin Gaye and a little Barry White filled the air. He wanted to sink into the floor. He tried to explain that humans didn't start reproduction ceremonies with scented wax and bad R&B, but they weren't listening. They thought this was how it was done. One of them leaned in close, murmuring, "Do not resist. Relax. It will be pleasurable." He laughed nervously, holding up his hands. "That's the same line my dentist used before a root canal." Spoiler alert, it was not pleasurable. They began circling him, asking bizarrely intimate questions like, "What is your gestation tolerance?" and "Would you prefer dorsal insertion or ventral accommodation?" He clutched a pillow to his chest like it was holy armor. "Neither. None of the above. Do I look like a hotel room? I'm not accepting bookings." It would have been easy to panic, but he remembered something. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't strength, or technology, or even intelligence. It was procrastination. Pure, stubborn, weaponized procrastination. So he decided to stall. First tactic, technology. He waved at his Wi-Fi router like a preacher holding up a relic. "You can't just start the process here. You need internet. Human reproduction is deeply tied to Wi-Fi. No signal, no cycles. It's science." They paused, suspicious, and asked, "Explain." He grinned, knowing he had them hooked. "We can't bond without constant streaming. It's how we establish rhythm, synchronization, intimacy. If you really want this to work, you'll need to binge at least 3 seasons of reality TV with me first. That's the law of human biology." To his amazement, they believed him. Soon, the 2 alien women were on the couch with him, staring wide-eyed at an endless marathon of dating shows and cooking competitions. They watched with disturbing fascination as humans screamed at each other over raw chicken and bad cake icing. After the 3rd episode, one of them whispered, "Your species reproduces through humiliation rituals." He nodded solemnly. "Exactly. You get it now." Second tactic, overwhelm them with paperwork. He dug through his drawers, pulled out his old roommate agreement, and scribbled nonsense clauses all over it. "If you're gonna live here and do this, whatever, we need contracts. Chores, rent, dish duty, laundry schedules. Human law requires it." They read it carefully, their perfect brows furrowing. One of them asked, "What is taking out the trash?" He pointed at his neighbor's overflowing bins. "It's a sacred ritual. Essential for successful cohabitation." By the time they finished signing every page, they looked more confused than dangerous. He felt a surge of hope. Humanity wasn't strong, but it was petty. It thrived on rules, loopholes, and chores. And he was about to weaponize that. Third tactic, cultural sabotage. He showed them meme compilations. He blasted karaoke videos. He introduced them to the concept of online comment sections, where humans fought each other with more passion than any interstellar war. The aliens sat frozen, muttering, they gestate socially, they battle constantly within their brood, survival through chaos. They didn't realize he was just distracting them with nonsense, but it worked. Hours passed. The candles burned out. The playlist looped 3 times. And still, no eggs. No transformations. Just 2 baffled alien women drowning in the madness of human culture. But eventually, they caught on. The tall one narrowed her eyes, standing to her full, intimidating height. You delay. You resist. But resistance cannot last forever. Your body will comply, even if your mind refuses. He gulped but forced a grin. Maybe. But here's the thing about humans, you think we give up, but really, we just keep making things worse until our enemies quit out of frustration. It's our evolutionary strategy. Annoy them into surrender. The second one actually laughed, shaking her head. Annoyance as defense. Strange. Effective. She stepped closer, her expression softer now. You are not like other males we have taken. You are difficult. He threw his arms wide. Exactly. Difficult. That's my superpower. Humanity doesn't win wars with strength. We win by being the galaxy's most stubborn, sarcastic pain in the ass. The little alien girl, now taller, her form shifting as she completed some hidden cycle, clapped her hands like a proud daughter. Dad wins. Host capacity, delayed. The 2 women sighed, clearly frustrated but also intrigued. They gathered their strange devices, muttering about further observation and extended timelines. One of them gave him a lingering look and whispered, "This is not over. You cannot escape biology." He shot back, "Watch me. Humans escape bills, diets, gym memberships, we're built for dodging responsibility." And then, to his utter shock, they left. Not forever, he knew. Just delayed. But for now, he had won by doing the most human thing possible, wasting time until the universe gave up. He slumped onto the couch, exhausted, while the alien girl turned alien teen plopped beside him, grabbing the remote. She looked at him with mischievous eyes and said, "So, how many alien moms are you bringing home this time?" Before he could respond, there was another knock at the door. Louder. He froze, noodles halfway to his mouth. The girl grinned, whispering, "Round 2. He stared at the door, then at the ceiling, and muttered, "I really should have stuck with the burrito in the dumpster."